Going to test out every bit of Orion.
Coming back to Earth, 7 miles a second.
When humanity sets big goals, we can bring together genius from around the world.
You have the best people on planet Earth putting this vehicle together. That's what's up.
To innovate for the benefit of humanity and to inspire the world through discovery.
And here we go.
Welcome, and thank you for joining us live from NASA's Kennedy Space Center, where we are beginning a new chapter in America's human spaceflight story. We are so humbled to have thousands of people here in person to witness this, and the many more watching online from around the world. I'm NASA's Megan Cruz, and this is NASA astronaut Nicole Ayers.
Thanks, Megan. What a historic day to be here.
What a historic day to be here. Obviously, for what we see right behind us here, the SLS rocket and Orion spacecraft on launch pad 39B. Artemis 2 is a nearly 10-day flight test to prove NASA can safely fly astronauts around the moon before attempting to land on it in just 2 years, hopefully.
Yes, like you said, it's a test flight, so we're going to put humans on this rocket for the first time ever, and we're going to test out the systems on board and hopefully get around the moon.
And why does NASA want to return us to the moon?
And we want to go back for scientific discovery, right? We want to create a permanent presence on the lunar surface. We want to be able to harness some of the volatiles or the resources on the moon in order to get us onto Mars later. So we're going to use the moon as a stepping stone to get to Mars, but also we're going to use the moon to learn so much about Earth and about the creation of the solar system. The moon is this untouched witness mark for the Earth and the solar system.
And what I really love is like all the things that we do to get us to explore our universe, all of that technology, all the jobs created to support that, it all benefits us here on Earth.
Yes, definitely. I mean, getting this rocket into orbit takes 8.8 million pounds of thrust, right? And it's the people on Earth who do that and who create that, the engineers, the scientists. There are so many people who make this mission happen.
And so if all goes well, this crew could travel farther from Earth than any other humans before them and see parts of the moon no one has ever laid eyes on. And now, speaking of laying eyes, here we are in the suit-up room with the Artemis 2 crew.
Yes, looks like the commander's getting his comm cap on, so the communication cap. Looks like Victor's already got his on and the helmet going.
He's just stretching out his wrist a little bit, right?
Yes.
And in charge of liftoff today is Launch Director Charlie Blackwell Thompson. She and her team are just across the street from us inside of the Launch Control Center. They kicked off continuous around-the-clock operations just before 5 p.m. on Monday and started fueling the rocket about 4 hours ago. They have a 2-hour launch window that opens at 6:24 p.m. Eastern Time, which our clock in the upper left-hand corner is counting down to. And, we just heard from Charlie Blackwell Thompson in our tanking coverage, which was the broadcast just before this one kicked off. And basically, she said weather is 80% go.
Yes, 80%, we will take that. It's a little windy. There's some clouds building, but we're going to keep an eye on it, and 80% is a good number to keep moving today.
Yeah, and what she said was a wave of showers are moving west, but they should be well past the pad by the time we launch again, hopefully at 6:24 p.m. today.
Hopefully.
All right, so again, let's head back into that suit-up room. We see Reed Wiseman. He is the commander of the Artemis 2 crew, and Nicole, he is putting on what you guys are calling the communications cap, the comm cap.
Yes. So it's a little bit for protection of his,
Remember, I've talked about this a lot, that increased winds is one of the first things you notice after a solar storm impact. Like every single time, basically, the winds will just suddenly pick up. We're having the solar storm impact right now.
Eventually connects into the capsule through an umbilical there. So there's a lot of cords and wires. You can see them tuck in that cord under his chin right now.
And so the suits they're wearing, they're called the Orion Crew Survival Suits, or OX suits. And so they're worn for launch and reentry or during high risk or emergency situations. And I think a lot of people, especially if they're have been following NASA for all these decades now, they're kind of thinking, hey, these look like the suits that our shuttle astronauts used to wear. There is a lot of resemblance here.
That's true. Yeah, they are very similar. NASA does a great job of leveraging the lessons that we learn from previous missions. So dating all the way back to Apollo, some of our first spaceflight missions, we learned lessons
Time now to introduce you to some of our teams today. We have Eric Jordan at NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston. He's going to be inside with the mission control teams, which will take over from Kennedy's launch control team right at liftoff. And then back here at Florida, there's Megan Carter inside Kennedy Space Center's visitor complex, Jasmine Hopkins at a launch viewing location, and then finally Daryl Nail inside the launch control center with the launch team. Now, each is going to provide a very unique experience today, starting first with Daryl, who has been closely monitoring.
And welcome to Firing Room 1, a historic firing room here at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here reporting what's happening as we lead up to countdown and liftoff of Artemis 2. So far, looking pretty good. You see the rocket out there on the pad. It is launch day, and we just got that crew weather brief that you were talking about from Launch Director Charlie Blackwell-Thompson to the crew. It looks like a countdown at this point is in good shape, and that's great news. Fueling continues to track well. We just reached all stages replenish. And while we're talking about the fueling, let's talk about that tanking. Pull up the tanking graphic if we could now. That will give us an indication of where we are with tanking. And I can just tell you, as you see from this board right here, we are all stages replenish. So all tanks on board the SLS, the 2 liquid hydrogen, lower stage and upper stage, and 2 liquid oxygen, lower stage and upper stage, are at 100%, and that's exactly where we want to be. This kicked off at 7:30 this morning with a go for cryo load, and here we are, roughly about 5 hours later, and we're fully tanked and now in replenish. The amount of propellant on board, roughly 733,000 gallons. That's about an Olympic-sized pool and a half. Huge amount of propellant. It's all flowed in there. The great news there, no leaks, no issues, and we're looking good at this point. So let's talk weather now. The weather, while it is favorable overall, it's not totally clean, and that was hinted at earlier when we talked about the storms. There is, of course, some onshore flow. Currently, our overall attempt percentage stands at 80% chance of acceptable weather conditions at the time of liftoff, which is going to be within our launch window. That's tonight from 6:24 p.m. Eastern Time until 8:24 p.m. Eastern Time. Winds are good. The lightning risk is low. But scattered showers still remain possible around the Cape and including near the pad. So the expectation is that there'll be some more active weather coming our way, but we're expecting it to push to the west. So the watch item is really any isolated shower that could briefly move through the area and trigger a constraint, especially for flight through precipitation. Well, you're looking now inside the astronaut suit-up room, and of course we got the 4 astronauts there. They talked to Charlie Blackwell-Thompson today, and you know, everything looks good there. We're tracking one minor NC issue at this point. We'll talk, it's a non-conformance. We'll talk about that a little bit later in our next hit, but for now, again, looking good. And of course, our administrator for NASA is here in the firing room. He checked in with the launch director, chatted with her for several minutes, and he's here in the firing room, which is a good positive sign, of course, for the day. That's it for the firing room. We'll send it back now to Megan and Nicole.
Daryl, thank you so much. Yeah, let's get back into the suit-up room here, where we now have a shot of all 4 astronauts, and it appears all of them are undergoing their suit leak checks. Can you talk to us about what that is, Nicole?
Sure. Yeah, you can see, you know, as the suit expands, that we're going to pressurize those suits. So in the case that we need it, if we lose pressure in the capsule, those suits will protect the astronauts and keep them pressurized and keep them survivable. So these guys are going to hold their breath for about 10 seconds. You know, any movement in the suit could cause changes in the pressure. And so we want to get a really nice, precise, accurate measurement on the leak check. And so they'll hold their breath. You know, even just their heartbeat could potentially make some differences in those super sensitive sensors there. So you can see the red and blue valves there, the air in and air out. And it looks like Victor just had a good leak check.
Yeah, and actually they do 3 leak checks, again, just to get an average reading to say, hey, you know, we have confidence that these suits are holding the right pressure. As Nicole said, that tube that's going in, that's putting air into their suits, and then there was that gold instrument that you saw on their other side. That's how they can control how much pressure is being released in order to do these checks.
Yep, and they will do the leak checks here in the suit room, and then they'll do more actually in the capsule as well. They'll do another leak check. So we're going to make sure the suits are ready to go before we even step out the door, and then we'll check them with the entire system on the capsule once they get out to the rocket.
And you might also notice that some of the astronauts, while they're doing their suit leak checks, you might have seen Victor gave an okay sign. Also see a thumbs up, because it concurrently, while they're doing these suit leak checks, they're also doing comm checks.
Yes, yeah, we talked about the comm cap earlier, and the umbilical and how they plug in. So yeah, they're going to test the comm, they're going to test the suit, make sure everything. They're actually probably testing the cooling system as well right now. You know, they're going to plug into the portable cooling system and make sure that all of that is working. So we, like I said, we want to make sure that we've got 4 healthy suits before we go out.
Yeah, this suit, 3 layers, so obviously it can get hot.
Yes.
So one of the layers is a cooling undergarment, and basically they flow cold liquid through that undergarment to keep the astronauts cool and comfortable before liftoff today.
Yeah, it's like a onesie with a bunch of tubes running around it, and the water flows through there to cool you down.
All right, lots of information to share with you all today. If you have any questions, we'd love to hear from you. All you have to do is send your questions our way by tagging @NASA Artemis, and we'll try to answer as many of your questions live. And we'll also have some questions for you throughout the broadcast, so we hope you can participate in those opportunities as well. Okay, as we continue to be inside the suit-up room here, why don't we learn a little bit about each of our crew members? Right now, we are looking at pilot Victor Glover, but hopefully we can get a shot here of our commander, Reed Wiseman. Wiseman is Baltimore native. He's been in space once before as flight engineer for Expedition 41 aboard the International Space Station from May through November 2014. During the 165-day mission, Reed and his crewmates completed, get this, more than 300 science experiments in areas like human physiology, medicine, physical science, earth science, and also astrophysics. They actually set a milestone for station science by completing a record 82 research hours in a single week. He also served as chief of NASA's astronaut office from December 2020 to November 2022, and Reed has 2 daughters.
Yeah, you know, I love, Reed is such a great leader. He was the chief of the astronaut office when they hired our class of astronauts. And so, you know, I think I have to publicly thank him for my job here today. But yeah, he's a family man. He's a good leader. And he's a great pick for the commander of this mission.
Yeah, I think, you know, in talking through some of his other accomplishments, obviously he has leadership qualities that makes him prepared for commander of Artemis too.
Yes, yes, he does. He's a well-experienced naval officer and now NASA astronaut.
And so now here we are, pilot Victor Glover. NASA selected the California native as an astronaut in 2013. At the time, he was actually serving as a legislative fellow in the United States Senate. His first trip to space was in November 2020 when he launched as pilot of NASA's SpaceX Crew 1 mission. That was the first operational mission of NASA's Commercial Crew program, which resumed launching American rockets from American soil to the International Space Station at the end of the shuttle program. Victor is a U.S. Navy captain and naval aviator who served as a test pilot, racking up more than 3,500 flight hours in more than 40 different aircraft. He and his wife, Deanna, have 4 children.
Yeah, 4 children, a lot of energy, but that checks, right? Because when I think of Victor Glover, I think of a lot of energy, smart guy who's always excited and ready to go. And there you go, he's smiling in the suit room this morning.
Oh yeah, he's a great guy. All of them are. This whole entire crew, they're just a good group of human beings, of leaders, of friends, family. You know, I have never heard anybody say anything bad about any of these four. They're also well accomplished, and they're also deserving of this opportunity to return to the moon.
Yeah, and they're also humble, right? They're just standard humans going to the moon, but you would never know that when you talk to them in a normal conversation.
And so it looks like Christina here has completed her suit leak checks as well, her communication checks too.
Yep, they've already got her gloves off. They're getting ready to kind of hang out and relax a little bit, I think, before they walk out.
She is a mission specialist for this mission, native of Grand Rapids, Michigan, was selected to the astronaut corps in 2013, so actually same class as Victor. She served as flight engineer on the International Space Station from March 2019 to February 2020. And during that time, Cook set a record for the longest single space flight by a woman with a total of 328 consecutive days in space. She also participated in the first ever all-female spacewalk. And before becoming an astronaut, Christina helped build space science instruments and led scientific field work in some of the most remote environments on the planet. Her hobbies include surfing, rock climbing, community service, yoga, travel, and photography. Again, so much. When does she find the time?
That's a great question. You know, one of the things I love about Christina is that she's broken records and she's achieved all these milestones. But one of the things that she talks about is, you know, she just wants people to set goals and go work hard and do something that's meaningful to you. And she really hopes that her records are broken as soon as possible. She does it for her family. Talk about her nieces and nephews quite a bit. So just again, just a humble human who's got a support system in her and excited for the mission.
Yeah, she's always saying that just wants the opportunity to push people farther, to push humanity farther, see what we can accomplish together. So yeah, again, all four of them say that they're really in tune on what they think or what they feel like their role is in this mission.
Their legacy is providing the shoulders for others to.
Mm-hmm. And last but not least, first-time flyer, Canadian Space Agency astronaut Jeremy Hansen will fly to the moon as a mission specialist on the Artemis 2 mission. The London, Ontario native was selected as an astronaut in 2009. After that, he worked as Capcom at NASA's Mission Control Center in Houston. CAM stands for Capsule Communicator. That's the sole direct voice communicating with astronauts in space. He also participated in training exercises such as living on the ocean floor off the coast of Florida, simulating space exploration for 7 days. In 2017, he became Canadian lead a NASA astronaut. He also enjoys getting out on a sailboat, climbing, and backpacking. Jeremy and his wife Catherine have 3 children, and he actually got to hang out with them over the weekend. The crew arrived here for launch Kennedy
that's Pasak Shalom. There we go. To everybody that's rocking for me, we're gonna get right back to this. I'm gonna start this screen share on Artemis 2 space launch mission. Now, the thing with Artemis 2 space launch mission, is just like all of space launch missions, it takes a while. Right. So while you're doing this, while you're observing this, trust me, you guys will. You got time to check popcorn, king, whatever, all that good stuff. Sorry about the signal. But let's get this real quick. I want to show y'all something because this is the first triple time. First of all, it's a historical event that's happening. All right, the Artemis 2 space launch. Historical event that's happening. You have a lot of people that say,
handle people sleeping, people
all different types of if you know anything about space launch stuff like that, which I know very what you'll find out is not only the prep time, but the safety precautions.
Yeah, that was a great question. And we actually have another one that will
check,
pull up on screen
check,
here.
Triple check, quadruple check. All right, now I want to play something real quick right here. So we're going to come back to that. We're going to come back to that. I want you all to check this out. We're just going to listen to this really quick. All right, now it's War on Amalek. Yeah, man. I'm truly convinced, man. Let me put my camera off. You know what I'm saying? I'm truly convinced that the shalom, everybody. I got the camera way up there. All right. All right. So I'm truly convinced, man, that the devil that they messing with my signal. I'm truly convinced that they messing with my signal. You know what I'm saying? I've been having no issues. Let me get back to this screen share. I want y'all to be able to see. Put this. I'm gonna turn my camera off. All right. Still, we're just getting back from the Passat, so how like I am organized. So check this out. Let me turn this screen share back on. That's a trip. All right. Let's get back to this. Screen share. All right. Boom. Share. All right, I'm gonna have to keep a close eye on it. Now, y'all check out something. I think this is a short one. All right, it's 1 to 6 seconds. This is all happening right. All right. Does that make any sense? Western Australia, Shark Bay, ahead of the arrival of a tropical cyclone Narelle. Right. Does that? This isn't CGI. Does this make sense? Do you think these people that are here right now, all right? Do you think that they feel like this is not an ominous situation? This is not AI. It's not CGI. This is what's happening around the world during Passover at the same time. Artemis 2 lunar launch. All right, here. Go ahead and pause that. All right, we're gonna go ahead and pause that. All right, let's go back to our space launch. And I'm gonna let that play out because, and the reason being is because we genuinely don't know what's gonna happen, and a lot of people didn't even know that there was a space launch that was happening today. You know, a lot of people didn't even know that, you know, America and the other countries that are surrounding us are all racing to go to the moon right now. Word? For real? Yo, we got fireballs that are falling in from the sky. It's not okay. It's not normal. Nothing about what's going on with this Passover is normal at all whatsoever. All right. So again, like I said, you know, we have some of us that didn't even know that there was an actual live lunar launch that's happening right now. So I just wanted to make sure I shared this out. Let me go ahead and mute myself up, and I'm gonna let this play out. All right. Now, if you don't have to watch the whole thing. I'm not trying to get anybody to, just making the people be aware of what's currently going on. All right, making the people be aware of what's currently going on. You know, you can see, you know, people say, you know, NASA, the word NASA means deceive, which it does not. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, you got about 4 hours till launch. Now, I won't be broadcasting this thing for the whole 4 hours. I'll be tapping in, tapping out. Like I said, we'll be getting ready for Passat. And they actually get ready to launch closer to sundown. You see what I'm saying? They're getting ready to launch closer to sundown, so they know what they do. And you can't tell me Benjamin Netanyahu, you know, Amalek, and et cetera, sort that they are not involved in this. Right? Isn't that interesting? You better check your clocks. Pay attention to what's happening universally. All right. And let me play this for a little bit. That was the whole objective. And then I'm going to mute myself up. All right. And this is for those that like to see. You know, the fact that people say that, you know, first of all, the word NASA does not mean deceive in Hebrew. And then second of all, you know, people believe that these, you know, industrialized, I don't know what to call it, these facilities, these employees are all here to trick you into thinking that Earth is flat. Get a lot.
NASA then
Get a lot.
upgraded the
Somebody
LCC
came in and did all this construction, did all this just to trick you into thinking the Earth is flat. Somebody came and did all this wiring. You know, I don't know how many millions of gallons of fuel.
Now with Artemis, the primary launch team for today is in firing room 1, but there is actually support staff in firing room 2 as well. And together they will propel this ambitious test flight.
At least this day, this past on this April 4th, to see and witness the story.
We're going back to the moon because it's the next step in our journey to Mars. We need to go explore the moon. There's vast regions of unexplored areas with the coldest, darkest places in our solar system. This is a test mission, and when we get off the planet, we might come right back home. We might spend 3 or 4 days around Earth. We might go to the moon. That's where we want to go, but it is a test mission, and we are ready for every scenario as we ride this amazing space launch system and the Orion spacecraft.
But another reason we're going back to the moon is to fulfill NASA's mission, which is to explore the unknown in air, to innovate for the benefit of humanity, and to inspire the world through discovery. And when we succeed and when we accomplish the things that we set out to accomplish, that inspiration not only can set up new things to happen, but it also is a reminder in tough times that we're capable of doing great things when we work together.
The thing I love about the moon is that it's not just a beacon for exploration and this platform of possibilities for incredible missions like this, but it has benefits. That's actually why we're racing towards it. Those benefits are really wide in nature. You have everything from innovation, technology development, not only for future missions going deeper into the solar system, technologies that come back to Earth. You have inspiration, a whole generation of people starting this pipeline, STEM workers and manufacturers and operators that are excited to see what you can do when you work hard and you come together as a team.
When I think about the 4 of us flying around the side of the moon, seeing that Earth rise, taking images and video and sending them back to you, the feeling that I have inside is hope. We know that Artemis 2 is not the solution for humanity on planet Earth, but it is a contribution in the positive column. We hope that just for a moment we'll pause and say, wow, it's extraordinary when you look back upon Earth with over 8 billion people and you see this concrete example of what humanity can do, this extraordinary thing when we set big goals and we work together to achieve them.
Now, Kennedy's launch control team takes us to liftoff, but then mission control on NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston takes That's where we have our Gary Jordan embedded team. Hey, Gary.
Joining you from here in Texas. I'm at NASA's Mission Control Center, where the Artemis II ascent flight control teams, led by Flight Director Judd Freeling, recently started their shift to monitor the Orion spacecraft integrity, the Space Launch System, and the crew to make sure all criteria is met to commit to today's launch and the mission ahead. The team you see here in this room today has been training extensively to prepare for the highly dynamic phase of flight that begins shortly after engine ignition. Teams here will be monitoring the flight of the Space Launch System, Orion, and of course, the Artemis II crew on board as they make their way from the Kennedy Space Center into Earth orbit. The lead console positions will be in this room called the White Flight Control Room, a room which traces its legacy to the Space Shuttle program, with the first shift supporting STS-70 in 1995, more than 30 years ago. Each console represents an expert in a particular discipline, whether it be communications, propulsion, crew health, life support systems, or trajectory, and each of these individuals has a support team in other rooms, each ensuring that no data point is left unchecked, no procedure is missed, and combining efforts as one Artemis team to ensure crew safety and mission success. After liftoff, Mission Control Houston will be staffed around the clock over the next 10 days until the spacecraft is safed for the recovery teams and the crew is extracted from integrity and brought aboard the recovery vessel. The it's just the force to put system capability sustain surface. It's great to see improve. And we'll talk to you here in control.
Yes, we have seen with our crewed flights and our astronauts.
Card game with the defuse wins. So Victor won. Jeremy's out. You know, there's two schools on this game. Either you